Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria. Please do not call me Victoria. I've been doing this for a long time. I was the 911 coordinator. I've been deployed, as Sharna said, part of the Region 3 regional team. So, seen this in a lot of different forms. Been law enforcement, worked for Flagler County EMS up on the Kevin Guthrie. Seen this in a lot of different ways as far as being a team as well. So, there's a lot that goes into this. Everybody's not meant to be a planner, so a lot of people think that the IEP and all these processes don't apply to them because I'm gonna be boots on the ground. I'm going out and I'm gonna put cold stuff or wet stuff, or I'm gonna be dragging bodies or what may have you. But without this, it did not happen. If it didn't get written down, it didn't happen. So please, before I say anything, please don't exclude yourself as part of all this paperwork. All these forms get kind of tedious, but it's important. It's important. If all of us right now had to go out and fight something bad, how do we coordinate that? How do we make that make sense? Who decides what? Who's responsible for what? All of that matters. So please don't detach yourself from this. I made that mistake because I was more foots on the ground and was more intricate with the people who went out and making sure that they knew what was going on from them. And I detached myself from this originally, and I had to pull myself back. Now I'm a planning section chief and GIS as far as state is concerned, credential. The main focus of today is going to be that 215 and that 215A. These are not necessarily part of the IEP. Sean kind of went over what actually goes into the IEP, but these facilitate those tactics, right? Because we go from objectives to strategies to tactics. And this is where you guys will find yourself most of the time between the strategy and tactics. Who knows more about what it takes to actually get the job done than the people who actually do the job? A lot of times, as far as being an IMT team, it's not their daily job. So yeah, I want to build a house. They will tell you to go build a house. It will be up to people like you guys to make sure that the strategies and the tactics to actually get the house built are done and they're feasible and they make sense. A lot of this stuff from the top down can get lost and not actually make sense because you'll know I really can't do that. It sounds good, but because of the area, because I don't have enough people, because of the resources, I really can't do that. This is where you guys come in. So the objectives is, of course, to explain operational planning. Okay, so this a part of that planning. You can actually figure out what that 215 and that 215A are supposed to do. And basically that's going to solidify why you're going to do and how you're going to do what you're going to do. It's that backup, it's that sniff test. And it's to make sure that everybody's reading from the same sheet of music. Anybody ever done a 215? Seen the 215? Mm-hmm. You have? What was your opinion of it? Got it. Got it. And we'll go into talking about exactly what it is, but for overall purposes, just equate it as that sniff test. Can I really do this? And that's what it really comes down to, because they're going to tell you to do some things, but they're not operations. I mean, as far as the actual INT and actually the people above the COC, they don't. I wouldn't say they don't care how it gets done, but it's not their job. They have other fires to put out than to get into the minutia of the exactly how I'm going to do this. And this is where this part is actually snuffed out and make sure that it can be done in a way that they want it to be done. The overall goal is for the ladder to go up and down. The objectives can be facilitated by the tactics, and the tactics will resolve the objective. That has to be remembered. So this tactics meeting, that's what we're preparing for. So again, in this planning meeting, you have to prepare for that tactics meeting. And that's where this part kind of comes in, that 215, that 215A. You're not going into that tactics meeting telling them what you think. You're going in there for as much as you possibly can to tell them what you know you can do from all the objectives that I see and that you see and or have facilitated. How do you support the plan? Because that's pretty much what you're gonna kind of say as you get towards going around, I support the plan. How do you know that you can support the plan? This is where you figure out how do you know, where are you in that grand scheme of things. So the attendees are the operations section chief, safety officer, planning section chief. If there's a resource you can lead, you'll be lucky if you can distinguish the two in real life. There's just gonna be planning, logs, and any other operational staff. You might have some specialists there. So let's talk about that for a minute. It makes sense for the ops section chief, right? Because basically, you know, they're controlling operations. Why should safety be there? Right. If they tell you to run into a burning building, aren't there precautions to how you do that? Especially for the people who do that for a living, aren't there things that you need to do? But if I'm the IC, I'm not a fireman. If I'm the IC, you know, I can say I'm the police, but what else? I'm the police in whatever jurisdiction or whatever district I work in. I'm going to tell you to go be great. It's your job to figure out how to safely get into that burning building and bring that cat out, or what may have you, being facetious. So again, those are safety concerns, so they have to be there to voice that. Planning section chief, okay, that makes sense. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So, resource unit leader, this takes stuff. When you go to do stuff, don't you take stuff with you? You have equipment, you have PPE, it takes stuff. Do we have the stuff? Logs, again, do we have the stuff? Where we getting it from? I mean, this is, it would be nice if we just had this, you know, this warehouse where everything was, but it's not like that. So basically figuring out where this stuff comes from. So you see why we have these people at this meeting, so why everybody has to go around and say, I support the plan. I support that this is an objective. I support that this is safe. I support that we have the resources to be able to do this. I support where it has to go and where we have to get it from and when we have to get it back. Everybody needs to say, yes, I support the plan. And that all goes into this preparation. At the end of the day, there's always an IC or a UC, basically the orders come down from them. We all understand COC. I see a lot of uniforms, so we all understand that we got a boss, right? We all understand chain of command. We all understand hierarchy. This does not change in this. So assessing the current objectives. I have been in these planning meetings, again, like I said, I'm credentialed in planning. There are times when the objectives do not meet the situation. Why would that be? Because we love to say that we live in a world where everything that comes out of those objectives are what we should just go forth and do and blindly trust. Why would that, maybe a situation where that might not be?
Lack of information.
Lack of information, right. Is it guaranteed that whoever that IC and that UC are familiar with the area that they're commanding? Not always, especially if you unified command where there are a lot of people in the room and a lot of different split priorities. Like especially if you have a whole, you know, a three county event where person A is worried about county A, person B worries about county B. So yeah, we have a lot of priorities in one room. So of these objectives, are they always as flushed out as they need to be by the time they come down the pipe? No. But who knows that the best? The person who lives here knows that you can't put a detour there. That's not gonna make sense, especially in the time that you're trying to do it. I've worked this area. Can't do that, sir. You're telling me to do traffic control in this area, but this area is not the feasible place to do it. This objective is not gonna work. Can't support the plan. Make sure, and as you're doing this, make sure that the incident is stable. Again, depending on what you're dealing with, you know, Florida with Hurricane Valley, but there could be a lot of other things. The increasing size and the complexity dictates what you got to do, right? If it's changed in the last hour, this might change the objective, and it might so much change the tactic in the way that you're going to do it. Take that into consideration when you're assessing the current objectives. When we're doing all of this, what operational period are we doing this for? The NAGS one, right? We have to always keep that in play because aren't we still dealing with stuff right now? the incident is still playing out right now, but we're trying to think of the next 12 hours or the next 24 hours or whatever it might be. So yeah, we're always assessing those current objectives because now, I mean, 2 more buildings just blew up. Just running in those blown up buildings makes sense now, because that was the current objective. No, it does not. So yeah, making sure that this is stable and the size and the complexity. Always going over those current objectives and making sure, like I said, the latter is objective, strategy, tactic, and making sure that it makes sense going down and then that it makes sense going up. Safety issues. Again, if the fire is spreading, if the weather is intensifying, if the active shooter event has now more people than anticipated, than we thought it was, whatever that might be, what are the safety issues and how do they change with what we've already been ordered to do? We have to constantly be thinking about that, not only now, but how this, because we're talking about later. And we probably won't be the ones later, because we're gonna go home after this operational period, hopefully, with God's grace. So what will other people have to deal with? What does that look like based on, like we said over here, what we know at this point? Because we can only act on what we know right now, right? Wish we could see in the future, but we can't. Again, going back to all the objectives effective. Again, if you got an IMT team that comes in from a whole nother state, or they come to North Florida from South Florida, the way they did it in South Florida might not work in Northeast Florida. So are these objectives effective? You guys will know better, might know better than them. This your town, this your area. Use that. They're going to need that. It got to make sense going back up as well. How long will it be till the objectives are completed? We're supposed to be planning for the next operational period, but can you really get that done in the next operational period? Because I can't do this until they do that. It happens a lot. That's where you make sure that this is feasible. This is not enough time. Sean kind of went over things like, would we have physically have search and rescue done? Would we have what we need to get that done? Would we have everybody reunified and all of that? Can you get that done in one operational period? Maybe, maybe not. But that's one of the things that we're talking about. Bless you. And resources. We constantly have to be assessing what resources we have. And this very point I've seen get out of hand because you're so busy doing it. You just go grab it. I didn't know that it was only 3 left after I grabbed one. I had to go. You know, whose job is that? And understanding that is a thing. It is an actual thing. And not also do you have it, but what condition is it in? You know, people seldom think that, especially when you borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Cause I just got it, and then what happens when I get out in the field and try to use it, and it don't work? Or that typing was wrong because I didn't pay attention to the typing, and I just grabbed it, but it's not the type of widget that I needed. Now I got to reboot and reprint this, right? Time is an issue. This is an emergency. All of these things need to be thought out. Any questions or anything to add on that? So again, I talked about the hierarchy, right? The incident objectives, the strategies, and the tactics. That, please understand that if we show it going down, it has to work going up. These tactics have to make sure that that objective is completely satisfied. Not good enough for government work, but completely satisfied. And again, if you don't understand why they did that objective or even understand that objective, it's not written as a SMART objective. And I don't know whether you guys have talked about that, but it will get talked about. If it's not a SMART objective and you miss one of those letters, it's not timely, it's not measurable, and you do it to your understanding, not understanding their understanding, or they weren't clear on their understanding, you miss the boat. And depending on what you're dealing with, we dealing with life safety, right? We dealing with property. We dealing with things that are public facing. Y'all are public face too. Like I'm gonna be in EOC chilling. They don't know my name, but law enforcement failed me. Fire failed me. They don't know what they're doing. This is when it doesn't go back up. This is what happens. And as somebody who definitely worked in public safety for the majority of my career, I hate that. And usually that's communication in this area right here, either going down or going up. And I hate that for us, but it's what happens. So strategies. Do we understand the relationship between objectives, strategies, and tactics? It's kind of one of those things that you say, but can you kind of articulate it back and kind of understand how they support one another? Because for the longest, I would say that trilogy, but then when somebody would to ask me if I gave you an objective, what's the strategy? Especially the difference between a strategy and a tactic. Like that for a long time when I first started out with this, that was kind of a minutia. They kind of bled together, and a lot of times I would put the tactic above the strategy, and kind of skip that, because when you told me you wanted something done, my mind says go do it, and I didn't think of a strategy. I just, you tell me to go do it, I go do it. And a lot of times, depending on what discipline you're in, that's the way we think. This is checkers, not chess. We don't sit up here and think about the strategy to doing it, especially if it's something that's in our neighborhood of things that we understand how to do. If you're a fireman, you know how to go put the fire out. I mean, and the strategy is in there somewhere, but you kind of have never kind of picked it out. So I would implore you guys to kind of just think about that dynamic. Like I say, the objective is I want to build a house. What is one of the strategies to building a house? Foundation, plans, get funding. So I like to use the get funding for the house. You can't build a house for free, right? So the tactic would be, I'm going to apply for a loan. I'm going to get on my employment and pay stubs and things to be able to take to a bank. See how that kind of works? The strategy was to get funding. Now, the tactic is going to support the strategy. How do I get funding for a home? Apply for the loan, get all the required documentation, go through the whole debt income ratio process and all of that. That's the tactic, which supports that strategy, which supported that overall objective to building that house. That makes sense? And like that kind of stung me for a little bit, just in terminology. So I just thought I'll go through it. But again, these are the other things. And if you think about my build the house kind of thing, what are acceptable norms? What neighborhood am I trying to build this house? Can I put a mobile home in the subdivision? Probably not. So is it acceptable? Does it make good sense? Is it cost effective? Am I even at a point where I can build a house? Do I have the money for it? Is there a cheaper way to build a house versus this builder versus that builder? Environmental practices, and this last one we can't consider political considerations, because it's going to happen. Again, in my tri-county example, if you got three counties with county commissioners and city, especially if it's the city of Jacksonville, you got mayors and all these kind of things. How long will it take before that gets political? Before somebody's going on the news saying, making these type of promises and trying to make sure that County A, I understand all of my constituents' needs, and now that trickles down to what you can do and what you cannot do. Not long. It's not gonna be long before all the commissioners are trying to now all of a sudden get into your meetings. All of a sudden they barging into the EOC and looking at you on, so what's the plan? Well, when are you gonna have that done? I need these roads unblocked. This is affecting the school. I'm getting phone calls. I don't like getting phone calls. Fix it. Not long. And that's all they're gonna say, fix it. Well, that's what I was trying to do. I don't know what you thought I was doing here all day, all night, but okay, I'll fix it. Not long, not long. And this is gonna pull you. If you have not been with the EOC and you got a whole bunch of city commissioners and county commissioners running through barking orders at you, and you got your IC, but you got them, and now who do I listen to? If you haven't been in that type of situation, buckle up. You might rather go put out that fire. Because it gets strange. Execute any tactical direction. So you're going to establish these these tactics, right? We're applying for the loan. We're gonna get the funding. We're actually taking the shovels and go digging the ditch. We're actually, whatever we've been done to do, we're trying to figure out how. This is the how. You told me what to do. You've given me an overall strategy. Now this is the how with my expertise of how to get this done. I need this many shelves. I need this many doses. I need this type of generator. I need to figure out how this is going to be done. Again, that goes with assigning the resources. And those are human resources and stuff. I need people and stuff. It's all gonna come down to that category. But what kind of people and what kind of stuff? Do not order me if you want to go into a burning building. I'm not that is not the type or the category that I am in. If you need a GIS specialist to give you some maps, then maybe you would order a GIS specialist that is me. All you guys know about your equipment and your apparatuses and basically what y'all can go down your type of trucks and ladder trucks. I'm not even gonna insult you by messing that up, because I I am not good in that jargon, but again, it matters. It really matters. What type of vehicles, what type of cars, what kind of doses, how many sandbags, all of these things really matter. And the devil's in the details. Because when everybody's asking, the devil's going to be in the details. And usually the type of events that you're going to kind of work is more than a couple of people asking for stuff. And this wastes time as well, not knowing what type of stuff. This is the main time stuff that you'll ever have, because if they don't know what to give you and you're not specifically the type, one or two things gonna happen. You'll get the wrong thing, or they're just gonna reject your request. Both of those are time sucks and waste a lot of time when you got people out in the field waiting for this stuff. You gotta put yourself in their situation. They're waiting to do great work, but they can't, because you stuck in this bureaucracy here. It happens all the time. Monitor performance. These tactics we try to do as best as we can do, but understand that we got things that are ever changing. We're dealing with this in order to plan for that. So tactics work as well as tactics work. Monitor performance. This also gets lost in transition to, did what we do work? Did it work? We did something, and hopefully nothing's burning anymore. Hopefully there's no more civil unrest. Hopefully roads are open. Hopefully now we're moving past this incident or can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But did what we do work as efficiently as we thought that we were gonna do? Maybe not. Because now that we're out there and we're doing it, we wish we would have done it this way. Or now we wish we would have had this instead, because now we actually see what we're trying to do. Switch gears if you can. Work smarter, not harder. But you gotta be paying attention to this to know. Are there people out there doing excess energy if it could have been done a different way because of maybe a lack of information that we knew when we were preparing? You don't know if you're not paying attention, because a lot of times we're the victim of our success. But I'm sure every one of you have a story that you went out and you did the job, but now that you Monday morning quarterbacking, the job could have been done more effectively, differently, if you would have known this or had that. But you gotta be paying attention to that. And sometimes this has to be dedicated to a person who has time to pay attention to it. I can't be shoveling and calculating the effectiveness of my shoveling. You know what I'm saying? So this is all part of this process. And just knowing that these things need to be done or that somebody is doing these things helps facilitate this communication. Helps this move forward, helps this get better. So here are some more actually strategies and tactics that kind of relate to emergency management. So the objective. So the reservoir level to reduce the reservoir level to 35 feet by 0800 on 210. Is that smart? Yes. Yeah. So go forth and do this. Now here comes the strategies. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So strategy 1 and strategy 2. And then there's a quote unquote strategy 3, which is the selective strategy. So this is the thought process that all this preparing for the tactics meeting has to do. They've had the IC and the UC have come up with a set of objectives. You're gonna take them with objectives and say, okay, mile high, how can we do this? And understand that level, mile high in general, how can I do this? So, of course, reduce the reservoir level, reduce the inflow. Okay, makes sense. Release water from the spillways, makes sense. Pump water from the reservoir, makes the most sense. But you have to go through this process. Now, the tactics is the how. So this is where you come out and use truck-mounted pumps, working from the road into the spillway and portable pumps, blah, 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 blah. So this is where the 215 is gonna come in, because that 215 is gonna say, now I've selected a tactic. Going down the line from the objectives to the strategies, what do I need to do there? And that 215 is gonna tell you what I have, what I need, and make sure that makes sense. It's gonna do that math for you, and it's gonna communicate that to everybody. Because it follows what everybody should already be on the same page with. Everybody who's working the incident should be aware of the objectives, everybody. Then the strategy, and that way when you're asking for the resources, why would they fight you to do something that you need in order to accomplish an objective? Everybody who's working the incident should be on the same page that we've got to do these objectives. If you are on an incident and you're not going to support the objectives, you could go home. That's the way that goes. That's the way that goes. These are the objectives, this is what you're here for, and if you don't have a viable reason to support the objectives as far as resources or being part of this plan, then you go home. That makes sense? Anybody have any gray areas on how that works, from the objective to the strategy to the tactic, and then down to the resources, to where everybody says, okay, now go forth and do this? Because how can I go forth and do this without going through that logic? And a lot of times we go through it on RoboCop, because again, we're told to do something and we just go out and do it. But it is this thought process. And how do you back up how you went and did it? Like, okay, B, what were you thinking when you decided to just, go take 5 crews? This is what I was thinking. This is exactly what I was thinking, man. I'm sorry. So logistics, very important. Logistics, very important. As it says, when determining attack operations, consider the following: personnel and logical support. Resources, if they will be available. That is nice for you to go tell me to do something, but I need stuff and people to do it. Where is it? How can I adjust the plan if I find out that I need to do traffic, but I have no cones? What do I do? Or I only got 5 cones. They said, oh, it's some cones in the storage room, but they didn't tell me it was only 5, and they trying to get me to do traffic control on 95. That ain't gonna work. So this is where all this stuff is ironed out. And for which operational period are we doing this for? The next one. Again, that's a simple concept, but when you're doing stuff now, it gets lost. When you don't have somebody to actually tell you how many of stuff and where stuff is, and you don't have the time to do it yourself, it becomes a problem. It becomes a major problem. Cost benefit analysis. Again, this is not where we're thinking, because we're doers, right? We go out and we do. Y'all pay for it. And matter of fact, and while you at it, pay for me too. That's the way it goes. But again, when we saw those strategies outlined, there was a cost for each strategy that we had to consider too. Which one was more feasible based on the cost? Because again, I got people out here waiting to do stuff, and I'm caught in this bureaucracy of, can I get it to them? Because especially when you have unified command, who paying? I don't know. Well, since you was the first one to get on TV, I think you should be paying. It gets down to that, but at the end of the day, how do I support these category assignments? Can I afford to have 5 crews? Maybe, maybe not. But this, when you pick your strategies, basically you're thinking about how much this is gonna be. Do I use the National Guard? Do I not? Is JFRD tapped out? I mean, is it, cause there's other, in an emergency, isn't other stuff going on too? Like somebody had the nerve to set their house on fire for just burning popcorn while we had a whole nother, other part of town burning up. How dare you? We gotta keep regular stuff going in an emergency too, so things get tapped out. And especially when you talk about people and how long you have people with you. How long are you deployed for? Can I afford you to be here past that 14 days, even if I still need you? How long can y'all actually work before you stop being beneficial? Cause we all have a battery, right? Yeah, tired people mess up. Tired people kill other people or themselves. It gets real serious. This cost benefit analysis, I've been through this a lot. It's a lot easier for things, in my opinion, than people, but that's when it gets lost in translation, when it stops being used for people. When you're doing this, what alternatives do you have? Again, y'all saw that 3 strategies were suggested. In real world, that doesn't happen as often as it should, because we're a creature of habit. When something happens, this is the way we handle it. So, thinking of 3 different strategies, even though 3 different strategies might exist, is not commonplace when you always put out a fire this way. You always handle civil unrest this way. You always handle traffic this way. So that's the way I'm gonna do it. That's the only strategy I'm gonna even think of, because that's how we always do it. That can mess you up when the price tag and the event gets bigger. When it gets more complex, when it goes past 1 or 2 days, when now we're on the 5th day, the way we usually do it was quick, so it didn't cost that much. Now the way we're doing it, when you add days and extra people, now it's starting to cost a lot. What is an alternative now? Because now we should think of alternatives. We should think of strategy 1, 2, and 3, and not the way that we always done it, because somebody got to pay for this. And even though it's not us, and we don't think that directly, but still. And not only pay for it in money, but pay for it tangibly in your energy and your level of effort. Can you keep that strategy of the way you used to do it going past 2 days? Because you ain't never done it past 2 days. Is that stable to do for 14 days? No, you'll kill yourself, burn yourself out. Think of alternative ways and what those estimated costs are and the benefits. And I'm big on intangible benefits because I think they get lost. I've seen these things go on for that 14 days, and I looked in the face of people at day 1 and looked in the face of people at day 14, but not the same expressions. Those intangibles really matter as far as what are those alternatives and what is the benefit of not only doing this cheaper as far as that price tag, but doing this in the cost of effort as well. And of course your safety factors, your time variables. Like I said, day 1 and day 14 are totally different. And basically, which alternative has the highest cost, tangible or not tangible? And the lowest price tag might not always be the best option if it costs the most effort and burns your people out. Because everybody don't have an infinite amount of people either. So again, you go over all of those costs and the benefit. And the benefit a lot of times are those intangibles that people don't think about, because basically y'all RoboCops and RoboMen and RoboWomen, you know, in the eyes of some. I tend to not think that, because I've done some of these things out here, and I've said the word, I'm tired, guys. But that tactics meaning documentation. This is a snippet of that 215 and the 215A. And hopefully you can read this, but you have copies of this in your students. But the concept is not difficult. A lot of people see this form and think it's quite tedious just because of the initial look of it. But it's what you need, what's required to do this tactic, what you have and what you need. Isn't that what you need to know? Like that's real simple. And those numbers hopefully should flush out that you, if you require for, hopefully you'll have for, and you need zero. But that's like I said, that's not always gonna be the case. But whether it's the case or whether it's not the case, don't you need to know? Because at the end of the day, you told somebody you couldn't go out here and do this. Now you're gonna tell them that you can't do it because you didn't have what you need. Why didn't you know that? You're responsible for knowing that. This backs up that you actually took this into consideration and did what you were supposed to do, especially as far as planning. I didn't just wolf it. I went through that whole objective. I went through the strategies. I built out, I did the cost benefit analysis and thought it through to an actual tangible tactic. And now this is what I need to actually go do the job. So this is more so, this is also that CYA as well. Because what happens when you can't? What happens when you can't? When you can't get these things, what do you do?
Reassess.
Exactly. But wouldn't it be nice to reassess before you go into this tactics meeting with the operations section chief and he's just convinced that you're gonna do X, Y, and Z? This is where you reassess before you even go in front of the crowd. Like my grandma used to say, don't act up in front of company. Don't look bad in front of an audience. Like, figure this out beforehand. And this is that prepare for the tactics meeting. That is this time to go through this exercise, make yourself informed, and then figure out whether you have to go into this meeting and say, I know this was the tactic that was put out in front of us, but I can't support this. I can't support this, at least in the time frame of the next operational period. What do you want me to do? What will we all agree that needs to be done? Because we still got an objective, right? This didn't change the fact that the IC and the UC wanted this done. At least not at this moment. But should it? Maybe. Because they didn't know this area and maybe they weren't from here. Maybe time the incident has progressed. And maybe we do have to take this information and go back up to them and say, ma'am, sir, with all due respect, we're gonna have to change something about this objective because I can't support the plan. This is where you know this before it gets too far. This is how you sniff test it. And we'll go into it a little bit more. But again, you see this kind and type. Important. You know, as Sean goes back to the generator. What do you need a generator for? Is it for a house structure? Is it for an entire school? Is it for a short amount of time just to kind of do to get kids and parents back unified? Or is this going to be for a whole week for a shelter? Like, all of those things matter because the generator just don't run on air, now does it? So all of this is part of your thought process to you say what you need and in that tactic to get that type of that kind. Again, you're gonna do the math. What is required? It's required 4, I have 4, I need 0, or whatever that math is. Now we're all on the same page as far as can we support this plan? Again, this is the next operational period. And then it gives the other information of what is the tactic? And then the special equipment not needed, where they're reporting to. Again, all of this this is the communication that everybody needs to know, and it allows you to actually know that you say it. Because if you say something and nobody hears it and or remembers it, did you say anything? Like that tree that falls. Did you say something? If half the people are like, I didn't even know that she said that. When she said that? And I promise you, that'll happen. That will happen. The main point, if somebody gets something wrong, they're gonna say that they weren't told or they didn't know. That's the easiest thing to say, right? And it's gonna be the easiest thing for you to say if you mess up. I didn't know. Now, whether that's true or not, does it matter? Because something still got messed up. Something still didn't get done. Somebody dropped the ball. This is the way you communicate that. You said it, you wrote it, you went through the exercise, and you reported it. Beyond that, what else can you do? But this covers that, and this gets that whole thought process out of your mind onto paper and relayed to everybody. Anybody have any questions on how this set up? Like, it looks far more complicated than it is, but the important part is just these three boxes. The kind, the resource needed, make sure you understand this for the next operational period, and understand what this tactical assignment is, and understand what objective it relates to, so that you make sure that you're doing your job, and make sure that you can go to that IC and say, I will complete this objective. This will get done. Now, granted, the other boxes, 7 through 9, are great, especially that reporting too. I've seen that get messed up a lot of times, especially with people. Where do you want them to go? You know, well, I'm here. Where do you want them to go? Like, make sure you organize that. Don't let them frustrate people who can come from their homes or come from their districts or what may have to help you, and they have to spend 2 hours trying to figure out where they're supposed to report to. And they just run around your county all reckless and loose and just kind of intermingling and stuff that they ain't supposed to be intermingling with. Like, make sure you get that part right. That's just a side note for me. People forget skill, and then not only people but stuff. Like, we was in Bay County, they was dropping off porta potties all in the wrong places. Like, you just go look like, there are 5 porta potties just sitting out here. Like, what is this? Like, this was supposed to be like 20 miles from here. Like, it happens all the time that people don't know where to put stuff in people. Please, if you ever have to do that, please pay attention to that. It's frustrating, and it can get stuff started off real bad. Any questions on any of this? Like, it should take it could be seen as tedious, but when it's not done, I'm sure you all can kind of figure out how bad it can be when you don't have those counts. When you're sent to do something and you don't have what you need to send, and especially if you're in a supervisory position. Sean talked about divisions and groups. If you're that division or that group leader, and you organize that or forgot to do this, what does that say about you as a division leader, that you have people organized to go to Division A and you sent them out here and you didn't do this math, or you're not aware of whether they have what they need to do what they need to be done? It don't look good, do it? No, it looks real bad. So again, you're filling it out the way you mostly would fill out most documents, or most FEMA documents. Again, this is the standard FEMA document. People do have other versions of the 215. I would say it's just my experience. Why change if this one works? But it's not really so. I've seen people do this in Trello and all kind of other ways because they want a more electronic field that they can share on screens and this, that, and the third. But either way, it's the same logic. Again, that 9 and that 10, don't forget that. Don't forget that. And the kind and type. Again, these should be part of your common terminology. Common terminology. You never just need a generator. Never. You never just need a generator. You need a type of generator. You need a kind of generator. So the incident safety. So again, we talked about that we're going to be talking about 2 forms, right? We showed that 215, which is just that resource allocation and that resource worksheet exercise to kind of make sure where your gaps at. So, but before we go to that, so you get all this. So you're usually in a room with others, and you're kind of going through all this. You got all your numbers. So and you have some gaps. What do y'all think the logical way to handle those gaps are? You don't have everything that you need. You still have some numbers in that need column. What do you do with that? How do you work through that? Because it can't just be, okay, we did this, and now we figured out that we need 100 barricades and we only had 20, but we wrote all the numbers down. So now you know what your deficits are. What do you do? All of the above. You depending on the situation. Yeah, request, borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Whatever. But the point is, you don't just leave it there. That's the point that I want to make. You don't just leave it there, because that tactic requires those 100 barricades. If you know you do 20 light or what may happen, you don't just fill this form out and leave it. You either reassess that you can't do this tactic, but first and foremost, you try to find it somewhere. You see what can, and that's that cost benefit analysis. Like, is there money anywhere? Is there a resource anywhere? Is there, if you're working a UC type of event, like, okay, county A has this, county B has this, county C has this. Do they add to the 100 or do they don't? Do they have a resource that you don't have? You figure it out. You use this to figure it out, not just to say, oh, I'm short. You figure it out, and then you take this all the way back up. Now, is this tactic even feasible because of these gaps? Maybe I have way too many. Maybe half of this stuff, I still have counts in that need. So we gotta talk. We gotta go call this IT and have it come to Jesus, because the things that they're trying to do, we can't do. It sounds good, but we just can't. That's why this is so important. You don't just stop where you just write the numbers. You gotta fix it. You have to make this work until you get to all these numbers flush, until those leads are zero or they're at least manageable. Again, for the next operational period. So we got our stuff. Now we're gonna figure out the safety part, and that's where that 215A comes in. So the 215B is that resource allocation and the incident safety, and we all kind of can feasibly know why. Everything you do has a safety element, because you do dangerous jobs. You're first responders, so you kind of understand that you're the boots on the ground, and basically, the thing to this is, everybody's not you. Everybody, common sense ain't always common. There's a reason that they put instructions on the shampoo bottle. Because for some folks, they had to be told, don't put this in your eye. Like, why would you put shampoo in your eye? Why do they have to write that? But for somebody, they had to. So again, people kind of breeze over this, because, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years, I've been doing this for 15 years or whatever. But again, if you don't remember nothing else, like I said, there's a reason to put directions on the shampoo bottle. You can't assume that everybody has a aspect of common sense about safety. The main reason why is because you might be getting help from people who don't know your area. You might be getting help from people who are not as knowledgeable about your discipline. So you need to tell them what to do and what not to do, and what might be dangerous, especially for this particular situation. It needs to be said. It needs to be explicitly said, and not taken for granted that they will know. Again, you don't want anybody getting injured. The third bullet down definitely is important, why you do incident safety. Volunteers. When something happens, everybody wants to help, don't they? Everybody considers them a community hero. Do they do the work that y'all do? No. Do they consider the considerations that you have been trained to consider that second hand to you? No. They go in with their little camera phones and like, I'm gonna save somebody. You know, it could actually get in y'all way. Cause now you got to save some volunteers on top of the other people that you were saving. Because they don't know. You have to say it, because depending on, you can't necessarily control who wants to be, Johnny Hero. But again, you can get that messaging out. That's all you can do. It's just, don't go in this area. From this block to this block, please stay away. There's contamination, there's this, there's that. Stay away. This is for real, this is not a drill. Stay away. Don't do this, don't do that. Control the message. Everybody's a reporter now, but then again, the media is still the same media problem that the media has always been. They take the little bit that they do know, and what they don't know, they make up. This is why you explicitly discuss safety. Explicitly from your mouth, discuss safety. Because if you said nothing, what you don't say, they will make up. You might have had a concern that you just didn't even feel like you should voice, and now that becomes a deficiency on your action to inform the public. Again, this is why all of this is important. Remember, everybody's not you. Everybody don't know what you know, everybody don't have the experience that you have. So don't ever take this as, well, people should just know. No, people just don't know. Aviation safety, basically, it used to be as explicit as it is, but what the lesson wants you to know is that basically there has to be somebody assigned to do aviation safety. They're not just your own safety officer. Basically, if you don't do air ops, then basically you have to find an organization that does air ops and kind of add them to your incident management team, to make sure that you've covered this. Because we're all kind of FAA, and I'm sure you can kind of understand why the influx of what drones are doing and this, that, and third. So you can't just assign this to a safety officer. You have to have an aviation, safety person. So again, they expect you to be responsible for incident safety, analysis. Again, I don't think I have to belittle, I think you guys already know about scene safety and scene security, but again, the main thing I want you to remember is just don't assume that people know what you know. Don't assume common sense is not common. And just assume, it's better to say it than not to say it, CYA yourself. Especially, you would think that people know, if you see a bell, don't run up to a bell. Somebody will run up to a bell and try to take a picture of that. Just go ahead and say it, there's a bear here, don't go to it. If it's a high risk tactic, again, being subject matter experts, law enforcement doesn't do fire, fires don't do law enforcement, again, cross those boundaries of what each discipline should do and make sure that the whole safety aspect comprehensively is understood and that all of those things are identified. Prioritize, I think that's a word that gets definitely swept up under the rug. Some things, all things can be dangerous, but certain things are more dangerous than others. Everybody from every discipline is going to think differently based on what they do in blue skies, but it needs to be thought about on a comprehensive whole incident type of way. And you guys do that now. Like if EMS has to come on scene for a certain medical call, law enforcement has to go in first to make sure that the building is secure, depending on what kind of call it is. You kind of already do that in operations, but those are the priorities, right? Law enforcement go in, make sure it's secure. Now EMS can come in and take care of the patient. These priorities still need to facilitate themselves into how you respond to incidents as well. Especially depending on what you're dealing with, and everybody needs to know the same shit of music. You run in and got hurt. Now somebody's gonna be like, why did you do that? This was not the safety plan. We told you to wait for X, Y, and Z, or we told you that we're not doing this until 1400 or whatever it might be. All that needs to be understood, that priority. Anybody got anything to say on that? Don't assume that it's the same priority and the same safety aspects for blue skies, for gray skies. Please don't, especially when you're playing in somebody else's backyard. Cause again, and especially if you got other people playing in yours, consider that. Especially in tandem with the situation. Cause I say a lot of people take this lightly because they think people just should know. Don't think that people should just know. So which brings us to the 215A. 215A. So we saw the 215, but the 215A is that safety analysis. So again, think of where we are in the grand scheme of the plan or plan P, that we have our objectives, we're getting ready for this tactics meeting. So now we've gone through the 215, we've decided that, this is what we're gonna do, these are the resources, we figured it out, borrow from people that pay call, that this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. Now, what are the safety implications of what we decided that we're absolutely going to do as long as the plan is supported? How dangerous is it? What common knowledge needs to be relayed to everybody, no matter what discipline it is? Again, an example is talking about Division A. Divisions are organized by, what's the word Sean said earlier? Right. So what apparent to us being in whatever area that is, if Division A is the north side, and we have to do something on the north side, then what hazards exist with doing tactic B in Division A? Cause that might be different than if you're doing the same thing on the west side. Just by demographic, by population, by what buildings are there, what infrastructure, a whole lot of stuff. How many people you have that work on the north side versus the west side, all of that. So this is where you break that down and say, I didn't just do this for the whole incident, I broke it down and thought about what hazards Division A is gonna have. Based on Division B, whose south side is gonna have. And you guys do that in Blue Skies as well. Like I say, depending on where you work, you do things a little bit differently. We all have our overall code, but at the end of the day, yeah, there's differences in the way you have to respond to certain areas of Jacksonville. Just because it's a certain area of Jacksonville. So this does not change, but when you're talking about a major incident, it definitely has to be completely thought out, right? These might not be people who usually work on the north side, so they don't know. So again, you relate that to them, and not only where it is, what's the hazard, but how do you get around it? Cause don't we still got something to do? We still got a job to do. We still gotta have an incident support. So basically, yeah, this is what we signed up for. This might get a little rough, might get a little hairy, but this is what you do if such thing was to happen. If it goes wrong, if something happens, you should have done that mitigation. If you did not do that mitigation, then now we didn't put you in danger, you put you in danger. Cause you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Now, I'm sure everybody has a story on that too, how Bob the Builder didn't do what he was supposed to do. But at the end of the day, this is where you do your due diligence to try your very best overall to try to mitigate this and stop this. How more complex is this from when you have just a single incident with just JFRD and JSO to you have a multi-jurisdictional incident with all personnel for Duval County, Clay County, Volusia County, Putnam? How more difficult does this happen? Because guess what? All of them coming from different agencies that do slightly different things, but they all coming into to the north side to do that same thing that they do differently completely in their area. Now then that comes a lot more intricate as far as when you're here for this incident, this is the hazard and this is what I want you to do. This is not Daytona Beach. This not Green Cove. This Moncrief, and this is what you need to do. No offense to Moncrief, but if you've been to Moncrief, you know what I'm talking about. So everybody see the validity of this, and like I said, we can easily kind of foo-foo it for, like I said, Blue Sky, but when it gets big, when it's, like I said, day 1 doesn't look like day 14. And you're constantly assessing that because, yeah, it changed from between day 5 and day 6. So now I'm gonna do something differently because now the winds are blowing a little bit harder. There's now more civil unrest. More people have joined the protests. The fires have spread. Flooding has gotten worse. Now I've diverted people from a whole different area. Maybe Division A can't even exist anymore. All of that happens, and all of this is part of that ongoing incident analysis for the next go round, for that next operational period. Because now I'm getting the weather now, and now, like I say, I have more information than I had when I started. So now I know these things I have a good source of what's going to happen, and can kind of prepare you guys a little bit so that you can start. Because remember, they're gonna come on board still doing stuff. We're just trying to help them out. Sean, you have something you can do?
No, just when we get to this last one, if you want to stop your recording, I want to reiterate a couple things.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you.